Okay, so for today's lesson, you should hopefully have your new notebook to write in, and I'm kind of going to continue with what we were finishing up on last term. Now, last term we looked at factorising with our algebraic fractions and quadratics. We were doing those. So if you need a refresher, please refer to your previous notebook and notes to give yourself a little bit of a refresher, because it will be part of your exam this term. So today what we're going to be looking at is still simplifying our algebraic fractions, but we're looking at adding and subtracting. Now I'm going to take you back to basics with your adding and subtracting, which is where you do need to remember that when you're adding and subtracting fractions, we are looking for our lowest common denominator. So that's step number one. The only difference that I'm adding in today is that we now have algebra part of it. So we're looking at simplifying, so you'll be simplifying today our algebraic fractions. So looking at our first example, we've got x over 4 subtract 2x over 5. Now what our goal is we want to get our denominators to be the same. That's the very first thing you should be doing. So we've got 4 and 5, and the lowest common denominator would be 20. So I'm going to times that by 5, and I'm going to times that by 4 to get it to 20. Remember, what you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So once you've established that, you end up with 5x over 20 minus 8x over 20. Like fractions, now you look at your numerators and you're going 5x take 8x, because they are like terms. 5x take 8x leaves me with negative 3x at the top over 20. Or you can write it, don't mind which way, with the negative at the front of your fraction, 3x over 20. These are probably 2-mark questions, so please show me a little bit of working out as a minimum, especially if I can give you follow-through marks, I can. That's a good thing about algebra. Alrighty, so moving on to B, 7x over 3 plus x over 6. Remember, your goal is to get the same denominator first, so the denominators need to be the same. I now can see that I can actually change 3 to be 6. I don't have to fiddle with the second fraction at all. So I don't need to mess around with it. So I go 7 times 2 gets me 14x over 6 plus x over 6. I'll leave that the same. Now look at your numerators. They are like terms, so it's 14x plus x. So that's like saying 14x plus 1x. We just don't write the 1 in our algebra. So that gets me 15x over 6. But I'm not quite finished with this. I can simplify this fraction to be 5x over 2. And because the question stipulated I wanted simplified, you need to take it to that next level, all right? Still probably only worth 2 marks, this particular question. So if you don't simplify, you have lost one of those marks, okay? So it's important to do that. Great, now with C, this is key. Everything at the top is getting multiplied if you're changing your denominator. So I've got 2 and 5 as my denominator. My lowest common denominator is 10. What I do to the bottom, I do to the top. This is probably a step I would highly encourage you to write down, because this is probably one of the mistakes most made in a test, is that students forget to times everything at the top. So that's over 10 and that's over 10. Now, brilliant. So give yourself a tick if you get that first line in. Now what you're going to notice, I'm going to write everything in one line, and it's going to help me to do this properly. So the 5 goes into the bracket and times is everything. So we've got 5 times x gets me 5x 5 times 3 gets me 15. Then, be careful. That plus needs to attach itself to that 2, so it makes it a positive 2. If there was a subtraction there, it would be a negative 2 timesing into that bracket, okay? So watch out for those little tricks. So positive 2 times x is a plus 2x. Positive 2 times negative 2 is negative 4, and that's all over 10. This just helps me to now identify my like terms that can be added together. So we've got 5x and we've got my plus 2x that are like terms, and then I've got 15 take 4, which are my like terms. So when we've got those added together, we end up with 7x plus 11 over 10, and that is as simple as we can go, okay? Probably a 3-mark question, as you can see by the level of working out, probably 3 marks, all right? Okay, hopefully this has been a little bit of a refresher for you with how we add and subtract fractions, but now I've just added the element of algebra. Example 17 is the question I would put in to test the top students, okay? With question 17, what you can now notice is that now I've got algebra at the bottom of my fraction, so it's denominator. But use the same logic, we've got to get the denominators to be the same. So how can I make x to be 2x? Well, times it by 2. What you do to the bottom, you do to the top. The process doesn't change, okay? So don't let that confuse you. The second fraction stays the same. I didn't need to do anything there. So now we look at our numerator. 4 take 5 leaves me with negative 1 over 2x. Or, if you would like, write the negative at the front of both of these questions are 100% correct, and I would accept both of them. Same, probably worth 2 marks. Great, let's look at B. We've got 2 over x plus 3 over x squared. Same question, how am I going to get the x to be x squared? Well, x times x gets you x squared. X times x gets you x squared. Then what you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So it's 2x over x squared plus 3 over x squared. Now what you probably noticed, 2x plus 3, well, they're not like terms at all. So you just literally write 2x plus 3, and it's all over x squared, and that's as far as you can go. Similarly, it's worth 2 marks. All right, well, hopefully you're feeling more confident with this, and you will be able to complete the assigned work.